We've been asked to talk about the evolution of financial forecasting and planning at Seqirus. And so I thought just to kind of set the scene, we'd talk about Seqirus a little bit and where we come from. So Seqirus is a life science company that specializes in influenza vaccines. So two fairly large pharmaceutical companies carved out different parts of their organization. We acquired them, put them together into a new organization. And so essentially, because we were a carve-out, we started from scratch. So in doing that and building a new organization, we really were starting from scratch, so we couldn't take any of the legacy systems with us, so we needed to plan. And what we knew was that we were heading towards a fairly common and a fairly complex operating model in life sciences, but we were setting up a legal entity structure where we had manufacturing activities in one part of the organization, commercial activities in the other, and some contract manufacturing, and some research activities, but all of this driven by a central entrepreneur. So we weren't sort of dealing with an organization that was standalone legal entities. It was sort of a connected organization with the central entrepreneur at the heart of it all. What that means essentially for us is that we needed to be very much connected, because in our planning and our views of the world, commercial tend to operate through their lens and manufacturing tend to look through their lens as well, but we need a strong coordination mechanism to bring it all together. The other reason we need to be very coordinated is because of the nature of the influenza business. So in terms of our product and the nature of it, the influenza virus changes every single year. So we find out in about May or June, roughly, Cristian, what the new strains are. So the World Health Organization tells us that. We have 2 or 3 months to make all the product, push it out into the market, and then the commercial guys have to go and sell it all. And we can't keep any inventory carrying over for the following year. So for us, it's a very fast-paced and quite a dynamic market, and if it's not connected and it goes wrong, it can really, really go wrong. So therefore, during our planning and all of that, it has to be connected. We then add into the mix that we're also highly regulated, and so if anyone's worked in pharma, everything has to be very tightly controlled. We're very regulated, and there's not a lot of flexibility, really. So we can't take product and push it into neighboring markets necessarily. So everyone needs to be very aligned on what we're doing, what the plan is, and how we execute. And when you're standing up a brand new organization that has absolutely no systems, forecasting and planning can be a real challenge. And we certainly found that out in our first year. So I guess that essentially, how did we end up with Anaplan and how did we make that decision? So in terms of building all of this operating model, we knew what our ERP systems were going to be. So we were standing up a new SAP system. We were standing up our HR systems, Workday. We were using Hyperion for our consolidation. So we had a number of really large, what I call industry standard, but very big and complex systems coming online. And so our IT organization was fairly swamped with that. And when it came to the planning and the forecasting side, we didn't really know what that looked like. So when we kind of started on day one, we had an idea of how we wanted to plan and forecast, but we didn't know yet. And so we needed something that we could build ourselves, and also something that was fairly agile and we can modify as we went along. So that's sort of how we ended up with Anaplan, essentially. I guess this was just kind of a description really of sort of our planning cycle. And so I think this kind of highlights we have sort of down here where in July, between July and August, we're manufacturing everything and we're pushing it out. And then also in the sales side, we have customer returns coming in, but we have pre-booking and planning that goes through to April. One of the things in our commercial model is that our commercial planning, we have a view of what we want to sell in the world, but because of the way we go to market, we actually go to our customers and get a pre-commitment, and we build a book before each campaign. And so that means what we think is going to happen in sort of January gets thrown out the window essentially by February or March when the sales guys come back in and tell us that the customers have asked for something completely different. And so these planning cycles that we have are very tight, and we need to rework a lot of data. And so for us, if everyone's not working in the same model and the same cycle, it's a bit of a mess. And so I think for us, our evolution was about, when we first started, we had multiple spreadsheets and very much functional silos across the organization, and very disconnected data. So I think in our first year of planning, supply was producing about 90 million doses, commercial were selling about 90 million doses, but when we stacked it all together, they weren't the same doses. They were actually completely different things. And so we found that out quite late. So part of our evolution was getting into a common platform and a common model so we can see all this stuff early, and when we make changes on one side, it then pushes through into other parts of the organization. Do you want to talk about SNOP?
Yeah, sure. All right, guys. So now for the interesting bit. My name is Cristian. I work in global planning function within Seqirus, so I hope I have some supply chain people in the room as well. So I'm part of the SNOP team. So that's me over there. Actually, the slide had a maze where the little man stands. So that was me when I first joined the company. And since then, it's been quite an amazing journey. Challenging, as I'm happy to take questions, afterwards as well. But I'll focus, as I was saying, as a supply chain professional, what was different for me and the work that I had to carry out in order to get all the demand and supply reconciled, and also how do you feed that with global manufacturing sites, okay? So I'm going to leave this behind me just to show where we were when I first joined, and then where we are currently, and then what's the future possibilities that we are exploring with Anaplan ongoing, right? So, as Michael was saying, a decentralized model, no real data that you can rely upon, and I'm sure you guys or supply chain people know the pain of not having, proper master data, no reporting whatsoever. Commercial was directly discussing with the manufacturing sites separately. Each of the manufacturing sites had a different set of data, including description and so on. So I was a bit lost, and they wanted from me to prop up this new system. I never heard about Anaplan at that point, so I was like, okay, sounds a bit challenging. I said, okay, but that's fine, I'll take that, right? So since then, what we did, and this is the uniqueness of the model, I think, because the business wanted to create what we call now central entrepreneur. So all the planning should be happening globally for all the manufacturing sites. And here I'm talking about, short-term plan, 0 to 36 months. And I mean by that, what I mean by that, it's a supply plan at the weekly level, and also a long-term 10-year plan. So what the model that we built does, and there are some unsung heroes in this room, which I will not mention them because then you will jump on them. I want that as well. From Anaplan does, it's the following, right? So we collect globally demand on a monthly basis. So imagine people in Australia, US, all over the place, even Latin America, with their own accounts, responsible for their own set of products. So the ownership, bit was sorted there. And then imagine that demand flowing centrally, us having the reports and the tools to analyze that. You can quickly run a variance against last year, against last month, no problem, see where the changes are coming. Have the usual demand planning discussions, have the demand reviews based on that reporting. Reports for commercial, where they will see cuts of data by country, by year, by month, and that sort of stuff. And then what's nice about this is how it connects with the manufacturing, right? So each month when changes are happening, basically that data flows not only, as saying, in demand, it flows down to each manufacturing line on a weekly level, and the system will fit 70%, at least 70% of that demand directly on the manufacturing line. So each product has a mapping, just to give you a bit of insight, against each manufacturing line and each production site. So whenever we have a change in demand, I can see, first of all, at the rough cut capacity level, where will I be having issues in 2 months or in 3 years, and what line, what manufacturing site, so I know where to focus then the SNOP discussion. And then secondly, weekly detailed scheduling plan happens. As I was saying, the system basically looks for capacity at the weekly level, fits those volumes that need to be produced, and then leaves the fine-tuning for the planner. So I guess for me, coming from, I was saying, my background is demand planning in FMCG, pharma, and so on. What got me, to think, and what I think is different in Anaplan, is how agile it is, right, and how you have everything under your control, because you don't want to be spending time, waiting for for access to be sorted for you, or if you want to build and add a new line or a new geography, new set of products, talk with the technical guys and wait for that. I don't like waiting myself, so that was great. It can be truly administered in-house. Challenges? Yeah, for sure there's been challenges, and most of them had to do actually with peoples and processes, because it's important that the organization will acknowledge that it's a change of processes and people as well, not only an IT system, right? You want to get the people involved from the very beginning by creating those user stories, and Anaplan has, of course, a roadmap for that, which is great. Because if you involve them from the very beginning and you take that wish list of what do they want from the tool, you will not have such a difficult time then implement it and achieve the final buy-in, because this is what you want, and if people are not using it, it's for nothing, right? And I guess this is what they wanted. For example, commercial, they were happy with just seeing one screen only with a simple input. Manufacturing science were happy to see RCCP, capacity planning for the coming years. And of course, we were happy as global planning to be able to cascade that demand down the sites, and provides a very good base for our SNOP sessions, both with the sites and the sales and marketing review with commercial. So, as Michael said at the beginning, we want to leave some space for questions now. But
I was going to add to it in terms of the evolution. I guess we started out on a common platform, which was Anaplan, which gave us a common look and feel and structure. But Cristian and myself built our functional models separately. And in doing that, we knew towards the end they would come together. But because his customers were screaming for a supply plan model and mine was screaming for a financial forecast model, we could both get on with the job, and we could both learn how to use it and therefore compare notes and figure out how to get the best of the both models, and not slow each other down. So we're now in a position where actually the two models are pretty much connected, but because we're on the same platform, they look and feel the same. The user dashboard experience is quite similar. The master data is quite similar. But users don't really realize that they're going between different models. They just kind of see it Anaplan as the planning tool. Whereas if we tried to go for a bigger, off-the-shelf solution and tried to customize it, each of us, we'd probably still be figuring out the designs now.
Yeah, no, that's true, and we do have future plans as well. As we mentioned here, we plan to run scenario planning quite a lot. As Michael was saying, in the flu business, we are heavily based on tenders. So then it's not only the firm demand that we are interested also in upside probabilities. So then with Anaplan, we created this additional model together with Michael that provided the costs and the expected sales prices that then we can run in global planning, what we call a supply risk optimizer. So without going into details, basically we can put what products from what different markets and opportunities are still profitable when you put it against our manufacturing costs. And then, okay, so if those are the profitable ones, where do we feed them for capacity? And this is where, again, my capacity planning comes back in, and you see where you have the free slot.
Yep. And I think, too, with the blueprints, we've got flexibility. So if we recently got mandated quite randomly to start going to 36, 48 months of planning and go to a rolling planning cycle. But the fact that we've got this, we sort of knew it was coming. I didn't realize it was going to be about a month ago, but we knew it was coming. So we were thinking about, okay, well, we've got versionality. We can use that tool. We've got time series. We've got, we can compare the versions. So we kind of knew what functionality we wanted to use down the road. We didn't have to use all of it straight away, but we knew we had it there and we knew the questions would come. So that's helped as well. So I guess if people got questions, really? Yeah. Sorry, optimizing.
Yeah, this is something, it's a new area, and I was talking with my Anaplan partner earlier, right? And we need to catch up on that. Yes, we were made aware of it, and for us it's an area of interest because what I was saying earlier with that weekly pack plan, calculating, it's quite a big formula there, to be honest with you. I haven't made it myself, it's quite big. And it does take time for that sometimes to load, right? So we are definitely continuously trying to find out ways to optimize that. We already did some work looking at, on a product row level rather than on the entire line when the calculations were happening, and that improved a bit. But definitely we are interested in an optimizer solution for that calculation because it's quite, it's not a big size-wise, it's not a huge model what we have, but it's calculating quite a bit that supply side of things. So yeah, we are interested in that.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think on the financial side, for us, optimization is probably about reducing work and effort. So I think Cristian's team did more work on workflows and that kind of thing. We did more work on data capture and aggregation and reporting and a little bit of sort of modeling in that area. So ours really is next about getting people, clearing up all the Excel spreadsheets and templates that finance love to create and kind of, weaning them off them and getting them more into the system and getting to I think our next task is, okay, you can have your template for the first pass, but after that, you're then in the system kind of thing. And so it's dragging more people in. So that's optimization for us.
Maybe to touch a bit, about the challenges that we face, right? And as I was saying, from my perspective, getting the design right in the first place, and the Anaplan guys are always saying this, right? But when you are in a new company and you barely know some of the people that you want to interact or need stuff from, it's not easy always to get them to buy into that. So getting the design right is very important. And as I was saying, I learned that if you involve them earlier and you have them build a wish list of what they want from that tool and how they want to see the data, it's more clearer. And then secondly, as you can't put up a system when people are not using it, right? So you want them to use it in the end, and you can't do that without having that buy-in. So if each business, I think, should look at this as people and processes, not only system, I guess. And that was the challenge a bit as well for us.
I think on the finance side, the key challenge has actually been around capability. So my finance guys love their spreadsheets, they love their macros, they love their individual models, and they're very reluctant to let go of them. God knows why. I think they're very proud of them or something. But they're very keen, and so when you get them into the tool, a lot of them kind of are like, oh, this is a bit too IT for me. So you get quite a mixed reaction, and so I think when you start out early, you have to grab the people who show interest and want to get into it and nurture that, because it does, takes a few months to get that, and you'll find some people won't be model builders, but they'll be great, designers, and they'll be great sort of user experience type people, whereas other people will be the formula people, and sort of the back end of the model people, and so that takes a little while to suss out. But I think what we've found is a lot of people get into sort of the dashboarding and the reporting side of things because it's what they want to deliver to their stakeholders, but they've probably been doing it the hard way in Excel and pivot tables and charts.
Yeah, I guess it's one of those things, and it was for me as well. Some people, when you truly give them control, they don't want to take it, right? When they're being given. So, but I guess from my perspective, what Anaplan did well and how it's positioning from that respect, as saying, back to my point with the big software companies with support and with tickets opening and waiting 2 weeks only for access on some of them, it's not great, right? So, and okay, Anaplan is technical, but I was saying, I'll give my own example, right? I was just a user in the past myself, right, of other softwares. I was never involved in developing something from scratch. So, apart from the fact I enjoyed it in the end, it's not as difficult for the planners, for example, or someone in finance to grasp a bit the control of that. I'm not talking about saying super technical formulas. For that you have the partners, right? I'm talking about taking control of that user's access that can be done centrally. I'm talking about dashboarding, additional reporting. I don't know, senior person comes and say, I want to see the data cut in a different way. So the planner can do that. So for sure, and we got training from Anaplan as well. But as you go along and build it, you get used to it, to be honest. And it's one of the main things that I liked about it. So it's not super technical. Security and user access, it's spot on. You can tailor. For example, I have, let's say, my guy in Germany. He only sees Germany market. He only sees the products that we sell in Germany and we plan in Germany. So clearly, if something changes in those products, I know who's done that change. So very, very easy to manage that centrally.
Are there any more questions, or we can give a few more observations if people want? I guess maybe a final observation from our side is, I think I went into this whole process with a view of what I thought was exciting about Anaplan and what I really wanted to get out of it and how it was going to solve some of my problems. But actually the thing that surprises me is actually when I go and talk to certain stakeholders or certain business people or whatever, actually the things that excite them about Anaplan is completely different than what I like about it. So I mean, I go in often with a pitch going, and it can do all of this. And someone will go, oh, I like that drop down on the dashboard. And it's kind of like, well, that's what wins the person. And I just forget that actually people see value in different things in Anaplan. That's that really?
Yeah, that's it really. I mean, if there are no more questions, we are happy anyway to discuss afterwards as well.
Yeah.
So.
Sorry, you mentioned rolling forecasts.
Yes.
Have you implemented one?
We are in the middle of doing it now. So we have landed doing what I call the typical finance forecast. So we've got a forward-looking 12-month budget. We've got an actual, like a 3+9, a 6+6. We've kind of got that bedded down. We're now getting to the point, actually, and this is where we're connecting the models, is you're planning sort of 36 to 48 months ahead. The business is now saying to me, oh, well, if they're doing the volume numbers, why can't you just put some dollars to them? And so that's where we're really starting to bring them together.
Yeah, we already included the marginal costs and for the COGS and the logistic costs in our model. So you're right. Now we are connecting it was earlier on the page. So it's connecting the LRP with the RFC. So the RFC is our short term and the LRP is the long term as well. So we want to connect those. So see how was the gap to budget.
And I think what's happening too is as people, so I mean we started this whole process as a carve out. So we have very little historical data. So it's all, we were kind of assumption led for a really long time. And now people have figured out that the data is sitting somewhere and they can get to it and we can do something with it. And so therefore we're really starting to get the churn now.
All right. Thank you very much, guys.